the vacation by extending the time of resumption. The majority leader is here and the chair. Could we be advised, Mr. Speaker, whether the special sittings we have had last week and this week will be compensated by an extension of the vacation pro rata to the time spent?
Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank Honorable Wetangula for that reminder, which is actually something that we've done before. And so, Mr. Speaker, we will be requesting that appropriate compensation in terms of extension of resumption, as he says, will be done. We've done it even recently, Mr. Speaker, so it's not something new. It is something that can be done. So I leave it to you, Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 2, the County Allocation of Revenue Bill, Senate Bills number 30 of 2021, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the equitable allocation of revenue raised nationally among the county governments for the 2021-2022 financial year, the responsibilities of national and county governments pursuant to such allocation, and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 3, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020, resumption of debate.
Senator Kibiru Charles Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to support the Kenya Amendment Bill 20. And from the onset, I say, from the day we started talking about the BBI, I was among the people who were elated because, as it was said during the 2010 Constitution, there were some issues that were never addressed well during the passing of the 2010 Constitution, Mr. Speaker. And when we went loud, especially for some of us who are in the background, we were being told that the 20% that was not very good would be amended in the future. And the future is now, Mr. Speaker. And I want to persuade those who are feeling uncomfortable with the bill that there is always another time to amend the bill. So, Mr. Speaker, I am of the opinion that...
Senator Shionga, what's your intervention? Pardon?
Mike, please. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, sir, if it is a discussion on the Amendment Bill 2020, I thought I had remained with 18 minutes, and I didn't know that you will change you have changed the order.
Okay, it has been brought to my attention, but since Senator Kibiru, we don't want to disrupt his thought process, I'll still give you 18 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Yes, Senator Kibiru.
Thank you.
I will be repeating what many people have said. I was reasoning through Zoom, and I heard what many people said, the 20 or so speakers who have spoken, some supporting, some opposing the bill. We have been listening, and it would be unfair to deny other senators an opportunity by repeating again and again what many people have said. But for those of us who are supporting the bill, with I being one, we think that an opportunity has come for us to make light some of the issues that have not been
another
addressed.
Intervention, Senator Wambua.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am very, very keen on this. I have heard my brother, my colleague, Senator Kiviro, saying that those who are uncomfortable with the bill, there will be another time to amend the bill. You say that on record. Which time will that be, and what process will be used to amend this bill at that time? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The bill. Very good, Asante sana. Thank you, Wabua, for that correction. I meant amendment of the bill. To me, we are about 97% in terms of achieving some of the issues that needed to be lighted during the amendment of the Constitution, the passing out of the 2010 Constitution. Mr. Speaker, while I was listening, I was shocked because everybody, some, including my friend, one who has just spoken and collecting me on the issues of the amendment, were always talking about some seats going to a certain region. Mr. Speaker, time and again, some of us feel a bit uncomfortable when Kenyans stand up and start talking about some populous people from Mount Kenya. We did not choose to be born there. And for purposes of record, I went for my school, more for my high school, in South Nyanza. My best man comes from Siaya, and my best man is from Bobazi, from Kisii. So I'm a Kenyan. So when somebody starts, and every time and then they are just trying to see like Mount Kenya is unfairly benefiting, we feel slated. We are Kenyans like any other person, and we have a right to be Kenyans. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to tell the people who wake up every now and then trying to propagate some propaganda that Mount Kenya is benefiting. We don't benefit. We work hard. They should be on record that Mount Kenya works hard, and we should never be seen as being favored by anybody. Mr. Speaker, some of us came from the very rural area, and we have been able to eke our life up to where we have reached. So, Mr. Speaker, let us all look at Kenya. So when Nandi is benefiting, I saw the other day when the coffee rates came up, the biggest, the highest rate that came out was from Nandi.
There's a point of order from Senator Wetangula.
Speaker, is my chairman of the Finance Committee in order to make very reckless insinuations? In law we say, expresso unas est excluso alteras, which my distinguished friend, the senator for Tarakanith knows. It means to specify one is to exclude others. When he says that Mount Kenya people work hard, he means that other Kenyans don't work hard. Is he in order, Mr. Speaker, to make such reckless insinuations against communities of this country in a matter where we have said repeatedly, and he knows, that the centrality of 2010 Constitution and any amendment subsequent thereto is equity among the people of Kenya. It matters not who works harder and who doesn't, because some work harder because circumstances and conditions for working harder are placed before them. And others are seen not to work hard because they are not accessing those circumstances and conditions.
You know, I read somewhere, and it is not those were not my words, that some of us are very good in grammar, and we always talk a lot of grammar while we are debating. So I wouldn't be surprised that Senator Wetangula, who is a good standing member of my committee, has spoken quite good grammar. And all that he has said is that he confirms that in certain environment where people are by nature endowed to work hard, they work hard. Mr. Speaker, we have what we call comparative advantage. I can't compete with Senator Wetangula when it comes to football, but I can compete with him favorably when it comes to business. Yes, that one it is. So when we look at issues of comparative advantage, we need to respect that certain regions are endowed in certain ways of doing things. So I would want to respond as much. So, Mr. Speaker, moving forward, I am just requesting that we as a Senate, let us start to our calling. Let us pass the bill, and let us all agree that we will continue doing the amendment. I was reading the other day that the American Constitution has been amended 27 times. We will not tire in amending as and when we see. This is a life document. It can be amended even in the next parliament. So, Mr. Speaker, I also want, because now people are talking about issues on record, and this is a house of record, and I've heard time and again, I've heard that the Team Kenya and everybody standing here telling us that there are some people who are arrested, and it is on record, and I heard during those days. Mr. Speaker, I want to put it on record, and I wish we can put an inquiry of the Senate that some of them did ask to be arrested. Some of them did even said pinpoint pins on where they can be collected. So when people start talking about people being arrested and putting it on record here,
okay,
they should be ashamed of themselves.
Order. There's a point of order, Senator Langat.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you for giving me this opportunity on a point of order. I would like to ask if it is in order for the senator from Kirinyaga, the deep state man, to tell this particular very important senate that some people had organized for their arrest. No one can do that, and that one is so bad and it should not go to record. I would like to ask him to withdraw that particular statement and even apologize for the same.
What's your point of order, Senator Mutula?
Mr. Speaker, Senator Kibiru is normally in a very good mood and a very good person, but today he's just going to mess our mood. Mr. Speaker, we must be responsible for the statements we make. And the statement that Senator Kibiru has made has no basis, and I will explain, so that if he can substantiate, then he can bring that record. Mr. Speaker, I have in my office here a record from the National Police Service indicating that no senator sent a pin to be arrested. We know where that pin was sent. So can you substantiate which senator managed his arrest and give us evidence? Because we have the record. Thank you.
Order before you respond, honorable senators, remember we are even live on TV. And some unfortunate incidents have happened to colleagues here that we would not want to be reminded. We would want it to remain in the past and be sensitive, because people went through some not very good experience. So, Senator Kibiru, can you withdraw and apologize?
Mr. Speaker, I thought we are House of Order. I just wanted to clarify. And if need be, Mr. Speaker, like Mutula has said, he is my friend and very persuasive. As much as I would want to withdraw, I will withdraw with conditions that in the future...
No. Senator Kibiru, you cannot withdraw with the conditions. You just withdraw.
Mr. Speaker, because I'm telling the truth. If need be, why don't we have an inquiry and find out what actually happened, instead of having to have people stand here and start talking about issues that were inflated by other people. But Mr. Speaker, for the unity of this House, I withdraw and apologize. Okay. But the fact is gone. The fact is there. I know Kenyans, of course, as I said the other day, Kenyans understand that we did not come to Nairobi the other day, so we know what happened. Mr. Speaker, as I progress, Mr. Speaker, is that the few issues are the very critical issues that we are talking about in BBI, especially on issues of proportional representation. The importance of that need not to be gainsaid, Mr. Speaker, not need to be overemphasized. Mr. Speaker, we have a constituency in Kirinyaga that has almost 200 voters, Mr. Speaker, or thereabout. And they enjoy the same benefits like some constituencies that have less than 30,000. So, Mr. Speaker, when we talk about proportional representation, it is not that we are infringing on other people's rights. It is a question of looking at equality and equity, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and as it were during the formula, people said that the money should go to the devolved unit. Mr. Speaker, when the amendment proposes that 5% goes to the counties, it is a call that we must adhere to, because we have always been saying, let the funds go to the counties. I mean, Mr. Speaker, what better issues can issue can there be? And by the way we have been talking, and the Constitution that says that we need to protect the counties, let us stand and be counted to support the bill so that the funds can move from the national government to the counties. That is one way of supporting devolution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've heard stories of people talking about that we need to include coffee, we need to include tea, we need to include ndengo, we need to include whatever in the amendment bill, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, from a reasonable point of view, or an economic point of view, or a legal point of view, Mr. Speaker, those are issues that can be addressed from another point. It's not possible to give guaranteed minimum returns in a constitution, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I would want to urge that as a Senate, please let us support this on areas where you think that there are issues that need to be addressed. We can still address them in the future. But for now, please let us support the amendment. And like I said, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to keep on talking and saying there are issues that are unconstitutional, because several lawyers looked into that issues. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, anything that would come, there would be people who would be arguing, because from their point of view, certain issues have not been, they are not satisfied with certain issues. Mr. Speaker, there will never be a time where you can be able to have everybody satisfied, including in our homes. Even when we are looking at our kids, there are some kids, even if you have 3 kids, there could be one of the kids who thinks that the dad favors the others than others. So it's a natural phenomenon. And so please, for those who are agitated or opposing for certain issues, join us. Let us pass the amendment bill, and moving forward, we will support any other amendment that you bring into the future. Mr. Speaker, I want to surrender my time to one Naomi Shionga, because it looks like I jumped the line, and I want to end there and urge people of goodwill, including Professor Kidiki, who is my good friend, that we support the amendment bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Shionga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute on the amendment bill. Mr. Speaker, as my colleague is saying, he's not surrendering the opportunity to me. It is he who gives opportunity to members to contribute. Mr. Speaker, without wasting time, I want to take this opportunity to thank the proponent of the PBI through the handshake for coming up with this document that we are discussing now. And also to thank the chair, Legal Justice, Senator Mogeni, and the team for the report that they laid in this House, and that we are also meant to understand that it is talking on the same issue. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I had highlighted earlier, I had said that I'll touch on a few issues concerning this bill. One, on the gender representation, constituencies, devolution funding. If time allows, then I'll talk about other things, including corruption. Mr. Speaker, sir, concerning gender equity or gender representation, the clause 14 of the bill seeks to amend Article 98 of the Constitution of the membership of the Senate from the current number and the nomination to membership of 94 from each county representative by selecting or electing a man and a woman who will be elected directly from the counties and the people of Kenya to represent them in this Senate. Mr. Speaker, sir, looking at clause 21, the bill which proposes to repeal 123 of the Constitution makes a provision to do away with the voting by delegation or representation in this Senate by delegation. As a result, members of the Senate, therefore, will have equal opportunity and rights of voting. Mr. Speaker, sir, clause 47 of the bill on the same issue of representation, on the other hand, then proposes that we amend 182 that provide the election of the county governors and the deputy county governors. These amendments are aimed at achieving gender parity, where a male or a female or either person of either gender shall be elected to represent in the position of governor and the deputy governor, respectively. Mr. Speaker, sir, in this governance, nomination has been really looked at as selecting people with no value. But when we have seen, or as we see, right now, when we see members of this Senate, I being one of the delegation, I feel like if I am elected directly from the county or with my people, then I'll have to represent them with all the energy that I have, other than being nominated and the way people think about nomination in the current constitution. Mr. Speaker, sir, coming on the constituencies, I want to correct in my last observation or in my last speech, I said 70 counties. It is 70 constituencies. Last week, I listened to a honorable speaker, chairman, on the issue of creation of the 70 constituencies. We have just had Honorable Kibiru speaking about the 70 constituencies, specified in 28 counties, as stipulated in the bill. This, from my view, it is that the 70 counties, I do not dispute them. However, the mandate of the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission of conducting boundary delimitation as outlined in Article 88A and 89, Mr. Speaker, it takes away the mandate of IBC being independent or independent of its responsibility. It is then the wish or my wish that the counties, the constituencies, as outlined, let them remain. However, let us remember that the constituencies are supposed to be the IEBC mandate to make the delimitation of its boundaries, and it is a responsibility of them working together with the stakeholders that are concerned to make sure that these boundaries favor or comes from people's participation, other than the way people are putting it, that it comes from specific counties, and yet this is supposed to be people-driven ideas, how and where these counties can be in conjunction with the IPC. Mr. Speaker, looking at devolution and funding, devolution representation or presented is a platform for grassroots progress and not an avenue for corruption. The bill provides, therefore, that for an additional allocation of funds to the counties from the current 15% to 35%, this is a plus, and this is a positive way of looking at how we can further the development in our counties. It is therefore, in my view, that devolution needs to be protected at all costs, and for it to succeed, county services and development need to function, and therefore needs lots of resources or money that can be manageable and can be sustainable or can sustain development. In this, Mr. Speaker, in addition to funding, citizens therefore will have better services, and delivery of services will be near people, and Mr. Speaker, counties therefore will not have to borrow or to have bending bills as it is currently. When we look at ward development fund that has been proposed in clause 54, the bill proposes to insert Article 207 to establish ward development fund, which comprises of at least 5% of all the county revenue for each financial year. In this view, Mr. Speaker, the MCS or the members of the county assembly are therefore the first people in this particular level to benefit. And these funds will ensure that the actualization of the rights granted under Article 43 within the county wards are utilized and the people are getting services. Mr. Speaker, equitable distribution of revenue or the resources are services that we need more. And at the ward level, if these MCS then get these funds, we are sure that they will be able to do development projects, hence the lives of our constituencies will be improved. Mr. Speaker, sir, to add, we are seeing that the bill then seeks to enable the MCS who has been at the mercy of the county governors, that they will no longer beg or stoop too low to beg for funds from the governors. They will be independent because they will have resources that will manage, they will be able to manage, and they will be answerable to their own people who elected them. Other than the current situation whereby if an MCA is elected, maybe probably, or is independent, or elected from a different party, he is at the mercy of the governor, and it is upon the governor to see if at all he can favor the MCS or the member of assembly representative or not in allocation of these funds, hence inequitable distribution of resources. Coming to, Mr. Speaker, coming to executive arm partially that will be coming from the parliament. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that the bill provides the executive arm that will be partially in parliament, although it goes against the doctrine of separation of powers. It will ensure that they are accountable, the people who are, or the members or the officers that will be elected from the National Assembly as stipulated in the bill will be accountable to the president and to the people who elected them in this position. They will be subject to scrutiny, which will enhance transparency, and hence they will be forced to deliver because they will be coming from the National Assembly, and they will also be people who will be following the debates closely just to make sure that what is going on in the legislative arm is supposed to be dealt with without them being maybe sanctioned or without them being bested on, because currently we are finding it very hard that when the members of the cabinet comes from executive arm and they are not elected or they do not come from the other side of the parliament, it is hard for them, one, to understand that they are supposed to answer these questions and they are supposed to progressively cooperate with the parliament so that they make sure that some of these reports, some of the petitions and statements are supposed to be answered for. It is very hard to sanction a minister nowadays to come in the parliament so that he can give submissions to the committees. But when they come from the National Assembly or in the House of the Parliament, it is very easy for them to follow. It is very easy for them to give in the submission and to give the response that members need. Mr. Speaker, I want also to say that in the bill, when you look...
Senator Cherargei, what's your intervention?
Point of information.
Does she want to be informed?
Yes,
okay.
Thank you, my sister and my neighbor. I just wanted to inform my sister and my neighbor, Senator Shionga, that
she's your neighbor where?
She's my neighboring county, Kakamega, where we borrow each other, Kiberiti, the famous Kiberiti and Mchumfi. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to bring attention to Article 153, 3 of the current Constitution 2010, that says a committee secretary shall attend before a committee of the National Assembly or the Senate when required by the committee and answer any question concerning a matter for which the cabinet secretary is responsible. So just to top up on what Senator Shionga was saying, this Article 153.3 is already in the provision of the current constitution, unless a proper elaboration. Thank you, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, neighbor. Thank you, Senator, for that. And I want to say that it's important that you acknowledge that as much as the committees are mandated into summoning or calling the cabinet secretaries to come and answer questions, it has been a very difficult process. And we go as far as some of the members or the committees go further to even sanctioning the members and even putting on the fine so that they appear before us. So I was just saying, and I totally agree with you, it's that it is very important if they come from the cabinet, if they come from the parliament, then it will be very easy for them and they will be knowing what the debate is on and what the mandate is on. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak generally on the corruption. Mr. Speaker, the bill seeks to amend Chapter 6 of the Constitution on leadership, integrity, and to strengthening the fight against corruption by providing mechanism for expeditious conduct of investigation, prosecution, and trials of corruption related to matters. The culture, Mr. Speaker, the culture of corruption has grown roots in Kenya society at large, and it has become a disease that we are growing up with. Mr. Speaker, corruption therefore persists Kenyans primarily because there are people in power, and I'm saying people especially who are given powers in various offices, who benefit from it and in the existing governance or institutional governance, and they lack the integrity of keeping their offices at bay and what the capacity they hold. Mr. Speaker, I just want to say, to reiterate that when it comes to the corruption, we need to have what we call transparency. And the bill, therefore, it is in better position it is supporting corruption, how corruption will be dealt in. And the number of days that the corruption cases, especially for office bearers, whereby they need to be stipulated in a number of days to bring the cases at end, so that when other people resume the offices, the corruption cases have been dealt with. Mr. Speaker, the corruption cases, in this case, they take too long to be conducted, even after extension of evidence has been granted. This matter is not funny anymore, and individuals are taking judicial system as a joke. We think that, or people think that they can always bribe their way out. How I pray that this disease will be capped in this constitution and allow a beautiful nation like Kenya here to grow without thieves or people who steal from their own citizens. Just to conclude, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that in this particular bill, we also have the Youth Commission, which has been highlighted there, and our youths will get more benefit from it. However, the commission, just like any other commission, in the Youth Commission, it looks like it is more of ceremonial. It doesn't have responsibilities that are tailored to it. We need a Youth Commission that actually will look at the issues of the youth and not just a ceremonial youth commission. Otherwise, I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to say that I want to appreciate the bill, and I totally support the bill. Any other thing can be made, they can be amended, it can be amended in policies and in acts. But the people of Kenya, because we have mandate to support or reject the bill, I stand here to support this bill, and I say that let us continue and aluta continue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity. From the onset, I want to say I do not support this constitutional amendment bill for the following reasons. One, Mr. Speaker, is that when you look at this bill by the promoters, it says they collected the views of Kenyans. But no one has shown us what really Kenyans want or how these ideas were collated. Number two, therefore, Mr. Speaker, there is assertion that Article 257 talks about popular initiative. This popular initiative, Mr. Speaker, if you look at it, it should be a parliamentary initiative by the political parties of President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, simply by the fact that they should have used their own political parties to push this agenda. Because you cannot have a popular initiative where state resources, you have secretariat that uses taxpayers' money, contrary to Okoa Kenya and Punguza Msigo bill that we already had, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, under Article 257, on the popular initiative, the threshold of popular initiative is too high that you can't compare on what this bill tries to talk about, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, another misnomer, when you look at the views of Kenyans expressed through the Building Bridges initiative, and these views were not captured. For example, Mr. Speaker, when you look at the Article 94, the role of the legislative power, Article 257 and Article 259, 260 on construing of the Constitution, and my good Professor Mutaha Kangu taught me constitutional law, you don't interpret the law in isolation. So there are people in this country who want to interpret the Constitution in isolation of Article 257(7). And when you look at the construing of the Constitution, the legislative power has not been taken from us. So the people want to say Parliament is a is a form of flower girls or page boys, is something that we are keen. And Mr. Speaker, people are forgetting that under Article 1 of the Constitution, we are representative of the people. We represent the interest. When we speak here, I speak on behalf of more than 875,000 residents of Nandi who gave me the mandate. This is what Thomas Hobbes and Aquinas said, that when life was short, nasty, and brutal, we surrendered and created a sovereignty where some individuals could exercise this power. Mr. Speaker, and I think these are some of the issues that when you want to say Parliament should just salutary process, we should not give an input, then we are abdicating our responsibility as Kenyans. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, when times comes, I hope some of the amendments, my colleagues, Senator Irungu Kangata, Senator Wambua, and myself at the Committee of the Whole will be allowed to amend this bill to refine it, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, it is the same people who are telling us there is room for amendment are the same people who told us in 2010 Constitution that tupitishe alafu tutarekebisha baadaye. Now they are removing the same lie. And Mr. Speaker, we can't allow that to happen again. Mr. Speaker, we must do the right thing at the right moment so that we don't, we are tired. After every 10 years, we come and amend the Constitution to suit particular interest of politics, Mr. Speaker. And it is unfortunate that the leaders, President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, Mr. Speaker, are given Kenyans the kiss of Judas, the kiss of betrayal. In the aspiration, I'm disappointed with my party leader. When we elected him, after the Supreme Court nullified elections, we went for election. He promised Kenya the Big Four agenda. As a member of Jubilee, there is nowhere we sat and said one of the Jubilee agenda was to be constitutional amendment. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a kiss of Judas to Kenyans for 7.5 million that should have now stopped wearing chains of slavery, chains of corruption, chains of poverty, chains of poor governance, but they should be wearing the star of liberty,
Senator
prosperity, and success for this nation. Mr. Speaker,
Order, Senator.
Hoja nidhamu, Speaker. Bwana Spika, katika taratibu zetu za bunge zinaeleza ya kwamba hawezi kumtaja mtu yoyote ambaye hayuko ndani ama hajaitwa na bunge ama hawezi kujitetea. Je, itakuwa ni jambo la haki kwa kutumia matusi ama kutumia lugha ambayo haifai kwa viongozi wa Kenya, hususan Baba Raila Amolo Odinga na kiongozi wa taifa la Kenya, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta? Je, ni haki kwa mheshimiwa kijana ambaye namjua na nampenda sana, ndugu yangu Cherargei, seneta mshupavu sana wa Nandi, kutumia lugha kama hiyo ikiwa anajadiliana hii ugeuzi wa katiba. Je, ni sawa hiyo kufanya kitendo kama hicho?
Yeah, Senator Cherargei, don't let emotions overtake what you want to say, and don't drag party things to this house. Please keep to the lane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of course, the impulsion of political parties should not reach here. I'm told the latest is ODM, but that is neither here nor there. So, Mr. Speaker, I think to stick to the issues that is before us, Mr. Speaker, is one, apart from the popular initiative, Mr. Speaker, and I think number two is I wanted to look at Article 11A of the Clause 3 of the Constitutional Amendment Bill, where we are talking about shared prosperity. Mr. Speaker, I remember when the BBI task force visited Nandi, the tea farmers, the coffee farmers, the sugarcane farmers, Mr. Speaker, wanted their issues to be included in this bill. That is why, if I'll be given a chance, I would like to amend and ensure that the cost of production in the pricing of crops, produce, and products should not come below the cost of production in pricing. And there should be fertilizer subsidy, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we talk today in North Rift, the rains have begun. The long rains for planting season. There is no subsidized fertilizers. The economy is doing badly. And when there is shortage of food, Mr. Speaker, and when farmers are not able to farm, then, Mr. Speaker, we cannot have an opportunity of ensuring that we have sufficient food supply in this country. So, Mr. Speaker, I would have expected, in the spirit of ensuring that we protect farmers, Mr. Speaker, we should have ensured that the pricing is in the right place, that we should have ensured the farm inputs and the cost of pricing should not come below the cost of production, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the second issue is that there were some issues of typo errors and many other things I noticed in this bill, Mr. Speaker. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to delve on the issue of, and therefore agriculture, Mr. Speaker, is very important. When you look at the index that we had before, according to Kenya Yearbook, Mr. Speaker, there was a total of around 2019, 17-18 year that Kenya had 497.8 billion. So agriculture is very important in terms of horticulture, tea. You know, tea now, Mr. Speaker, is suffering from a lot of attacks. There is reforms by government. There is resistance within the tea sector. Issues of sugarcane. They want to privatize leasing of Nyando Sugar Belt, which Nandi County is part of it. The farmers have lived. We were told there is a cherry fund that was supposed to be established through the coffee sector. Mr. Speaker, has not been captured. We were being told that the significant growth of maize, Mr. Speaker, including your county, Bungoma, and I had opportunity when I was in Kabuchai, and there were several lessons that were learned from that event, Mr. Speaker, and some of them are not so good. Mr. Speaker, I want to say our people depend in that entire region, and I can see the party leader of Fort Kenya, my brother Moses, is smiling. I don't know what he knows more than what I do, but I can tell you there are many lessons that I learned, that also that area grows maize and depend heavily on other factors of production, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of agriculture, it has not been addressed, even on shared prosperity. When we talk about shared prosperity, does it mean for one family, for Kenyans? Where is this shared prosperity when the farmers of this nation continue to go to farm? The biggest beneficiaries in the chain of value addition of farming in this country, Mr. Speaker, is solely based on the brokers, the milk farmers. The prices are being dictated, and I have said before in this house that Competition Authority of Kenya has failed the nation in as much as issues of crop production and many others. Mr. Speaker, when you move now to the issue of constituencies, and I agree with Senator Wambua on this, that, for example, Nandi, we were cheated upon, because Nandi has a population of 885,711. We were given one constituency. Mr. Speaker, Kwale, which has 866, 820, were given 3 constituencies, which is less by population. Busia, which had 893,681 population, was given 0. Kitui, Mr. Speaker, had 1,136,187, were given 0. So, Mr. Speaker, as Nandi County, we would have expected not to be given one constituency. We should have been given 2 more. Because Kwale, which has 866, 820, were given 3 constituencies, Mr. Speaker. This is clear violation of Article 89(5), where there are features on sharing of the constituencies, Mr. Speaker. I have seen the second schedule where there is a purport to suspend the main article by saying the creation of 70 constituencies to increase them from 290 to 360, Mr. Speaker, is that should be suspended. Yet there are factors that have been provided in delimitation of Article 89(5) on sharing or creation of constituencies, Mr. Speaker. Not to mention that Parliament will be the largest, considering our population is 47.5 million Kenyans that we have. We'll have a double-decker Parliament. The cost of running this Parliament will increase by more than 20 billion, Mr. Speaker. And this is not good for the country, for the economy that is in ICU. Technically, Kenya is on receivership. That is why we are borrowing. And I have seen, in fact, in the budget of 2021 to 2022, I saw the ministry wants to borrow more, 1.something trillion more, to factor the deficit budget that we have for 2021-2022, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that running of Parliament, I've seen Senate has not been given so much powers, but Senate has been created as a gender dumping ground where we just want to meet the threshold, we just want to make our women feel nice, and we want them to feel that they have been represented, the sharing. Yet women are being told, can you go and share 35%, Mr. Speaker? They are being chased away from the National Assembly, where 85%, where 75% is, 65%, sorry, is. And they are being told, go and share 35. Now you don't need women reps. And Mr. Speaker, I want our women of this country, I love them unconditionally. I want to say this, Mr. Speaker, that the affirmative fund that was created should have been more beneficial to women to run that affirmative fund. And I wish even if they were relocating them to Senate, they should have retained that affirmative fund, because they can share the lives, they can change the lives of women, people living with disability.
Yes,
I hope my time will be frozen.
Yeah, there's a point of intervention.
Mr. Speaker, I would just like to ask the Senator for Nandi to stop misleading us, because much as the women rep seat has been removed, the funds that were allocated, or that fund still remains in the National Assembly, and it can still be allocated to any other woman who is there to continue utilizing it for the benefit of the people of Kenya. You can't remove.
Order Senator Nyamunga. Or you move closer to consult with Senator Wetangula. Senator Mogeni, there's another intervention.
Mr. Speaker, you know the women I represent from Nyamira are listening, and we don't want them to be misled or there to be confusion. Mr. Speaker, can Senator Nyamunga clarify, because he has left me more confused, clarify to the House how we are going to leave the women fund that is meant to be utilized by the 47 women reps, yet, Mr. Speaker, the Constitution is proposing to amend Article 97B to do away with the women seats. Mr. Speaker, can she shed light to the House and explain? I want to hear this legal miracle that is going to happen, whereby you scrap the seat, but you leave the fund without somebody administering the fund. May we have some clarification?
Order. Senator Nyamunga, you are
and
actually...
then, Mr. I don't know, you know, there is this statement. I really want my women in Nyamira to listen. You know, when she tells the House that this fund will be given to these other women, which women are these? Because the fund was to be given to the women reps sitting in the House representing counties. Mr. Speaker, which other women are these that will get this money?
Senator Shionga, what is your point of intervention?
Mr. Speaker, as much as my good chair here is right, but whose woman? Whose women? He's saying my woman in Nyamira. Are we saying, is he saying about the wife, or is he saying about which woman? Is it a woman rep, or what does he mean?
Order, senators. I think that's a moment of comic relief, but I think, Senator Nyamunga, you're out of order. because the Senator Cherargei is the one on the floor, and what you are raising was your point of argument. So it cannot be a point of order. So Senator Cherargei, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I think the women play a critical role, and it's coming at a time that the first female president, or the first leader who is a female, is in the country, President Suluhu Samia Hassan. I just want to challenge women that they should fight for these positions, they should work hard, they can be who they want to be. But my point is just to inform them so that we don't mislead. And I agree that the funds under this, that has been our consolidated fund, World Development Fund, CDF, that has been another funds, but there is no fund, affirmative fund, that is with the constitutional amendment that was being run by the women reps in the National Assembly. So, Mr. Speaker, finally on the issue of representation, is that I've seen in the amendment, and I want to challenge, I saw the Court Secretary General speaking about the supporting the BBI, having not read under Article 97, it has been amended, and on the part, and I want to trade unionists, and lawyers who sometimes represent trade unionists, including my seniors here, that the special seat for workers has been removed. So under this amendment, Article 97, that the membership of the National Assembly, the workers used to have one representative. It has been removed. So how will the trade unionists, the labor issues be legislated and be discussed at the House of Representation, Mr. Speaker? So, Mr. Speaker, I hope the labor movements and unions are listening to this, the Kenya National Union of Nurses, COTU, among other organizations. Let them know that the role of workers has been removed in this document, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, after that proportionate representation, Mr. Speaker, I would like to say something about the amendment on the issue of judicial ombudsman. Mr. Speaker, I've seen yesterday, I thought my time was frozen, Mr. Speaker. I've seen yesterday that judiciary ombudsman just should retain with the Chief Justice. And I propose that we delete that from constitutional. I'm proposing in the aspect where Judicial Service Commission, Mr. Speaker, as opposed to on their own motion, issue discipline, reprimand, or suspend a judge, I'm recommending that the tribunal, as practiced over the world, Mr. Speaker, that role should be retained within GSC, but allow the tribunal to investigate the judge, because we know what happens in this country. So if you don't like your face, somebody can chase you out. So the judiciary ombudsman should remain with the Chief Justice. Let them do their work there. They have been doing it very well there. I remember in 2017, 2018, when we launched the strategic plan, when then I was the chair of JLAC, there were 3,515 complaints against judiciary. The judicial ombudsman was able to address 2,324, and that is significant. So let us allow judiciary ombudsman to remain with the office of the Chief Justice, and I think, Mr. Speaker, that is very important. Mr. Speaker, finally, on the issue of National Police Service Commission, I'm proposing that the Inspector General of Police should not be given unfettered powers of promotion, discipline, and many others, Mr. Speaker, as under Article 245. Let it be done with the approval of National Police Service Commission. Why would you want to make? We know if you Inspector General of Police, if given power, they have likes and dislikes. They can go to a police station, doesn't like the OCS, they fire. They have girlfriends and boyfriends, they put them in those positions. We know how power that is raw that can be given to them. And we need to move away, Mr. Speaker, because even SRC under Article 230 has been removed representation of trade union, Judicial Service Commission, other commissions that we have, Mr. Speaker. And I think it is very important, Mr. Speaker, going into the future. We are saying, I don't know whether imperial presidency was because Moi was the president or what. Because now what we see in this constitution, Mr. Speaker, is recreation of imperial presidency. We are not seeing where, because if you give power under Article 230, Mr. Speaker, that appointment of commissioners remains with the SRC. When you look under Article 245, Mr. Speaker, and I think that is very important, we should not give Inspector General unfettered powers. We know what happens when one person is given those powers. Let it be with the approval of National Police Service Commission, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, and if you can add me 1 minute, is that what I want to appeal, even as we reject this constitutional amendment, Mr. Speaker, I want to appeal that this bill, there is no hurry in this country. I have seen people saying if this is passed, there will be delay of elections. I want to tell them the term of parliament under Article 102 is very specific under the Constitution. So anybody who wants to extend time, I've seen people within the presidency telling the president, you are too young to retire. You know, with the BBI, you are delayed with COVID. You are not supposed to perform your functions, Mr. Speaker. I think the law is very clear. When 5 years end, we need to fix this country. In closing, Mr. Speaker, in the words of Thomas Sankara, the celebrated leader who changed the Upper Volta into Burkina Faso, the country of upright men, he said, democracy and revolution and good governance belongs to the convinced people. It does not belong to the conquered people. It does not belong to people who have resigned their fate. We must take charge of our destiny, Mr. Speaker. This is the moment, and I insist Parliament still have a law to amend. And I would also want to see my brother, the minority whip, our brilliant legal mind and the future governor of Makueni, to give us amendments to fine-tune this document, Mr. Speaker, before passing it. And as my chair, Mr. Speaker, as the chair emeritus, and I'm happy of Senator Okongo Mugeni, no one will kill us if we amend this document. President Uhuru nor Raila Odinga will not kill us. Let us amend for the future of this country. For us, Mr. Speaker, who still have some time in this world, I know some people are almost making phone call to heaven, Mr. Speaker, because of the number of years they have been around to heaven, Mr. But some of us who still have opportunity, we want to see the future. Mr. Speaker, I thank you, and I reject this. I reject this amendment. I thank you.
Senator Cherargei. Senator, I don't know what is exciting. You just be a bit economical with what you say. Senator Wetangula.
The worthiness of the structures, the reliability of the structures, the oversaturation of these.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, remember the old adage that hell knows no fury. Then a woman scorned. And when you hear young Cherargei panting and ranting, you know where the causation is coming from. Mr. Speaker, this is one of the most critical bills that has come to this House this term to amend the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. It's not an ordinary legislation. It's a legislation that touches on the foundation of our legality and existence as a nation. In doing so, Mr. Speaker, we have to be very careful. When we were pursuing 2010 Constitution, towards the end we had two competing interests, Pitisha to Badilisha, Badilisha to Pitisha. That is what everybody was saying. The proponents were saying Pitisha to Badilisha. The opponents were saying Badilisha to Pitisha. We have gone round, Mr. Speaker, and reached a center point where both can now meet. Tulipitisha, tubadilishe. Hatukubadilisha, tukapitisha, sasa tubadilishe. Mr. Speaker, in doing so, the genesis comes from the handshake. And the philosophy of the handshake, Mr. Speaker, we have been told and convinced, and I am convinced, was born out of how to resolve fractures, quarrelsome, and divisive elections in Kenya. That's what had brought us to the streets. That's what had divided the country top-bottom between we in NASA and those in Jubilee. The country had become ungovernable, was at a standstill, and tear gas became a popular commodity in the hands of our police force. Now that we are here, Mr. Speaker, have we borne fidelity to the purpose for which the handshake came into being? Mr. Speaker, when you look at this amendment, it tells you of a classic case of a good job done badly. A good idea derailed by competing interests. Certain things in this bill, Mr. Speaker, should never have found their way there. I don't understand why we're creating a youth commission. We have so many laws that govern our youth. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that Kenyans must learn to understand that youth is neither a disadvantage nor a disability. It's a transient state in human life. Today, Cherargei is a youth. I came to Parliament when I was a youth. And the next day, he will abandon all his excitement and behave like a statesman because he will no longer be a youth, Mr. Speaker, and so on and so forth. So we have overloaded, Mr. Speaker, this bill with things that ought not to have been there. I went through, Mr. Speaker, all the submissions from the 47 counties. I have not found anywhere a request by any Kenyan for 70 additional constituencies. Here and there were people who felt disenfranchised. We are oppressed by our majority neighbors. Give us our own constituency. The Kuria demanding their own county. Mount Elgon demanding their own county. Kitui demanding to be divided. But I did not see anywhere the request for 70 constituencies. But even in creating the 70 constituencies, we go ahead to violate other provisions of the Constitution. Because, Mr. Speaker, the Constitution is very clear. Delimitation of boundaries of constituencies and wards is an exclusive constitutional preserve of IEBC. They are the ones working with other organs of government, Kenya National Bureau of Standards, and listening to Kenyans that will determine that we are going to have this constituency here and there. What we have done, Mr. Speaker, or the proponents have sat somewhere without any justification, decided that Kenya deserves 70 constituencies, and allocated them without any rationale. And Mr. Speaker, this is not right. In fact, Mr. Speaker, my count of Bungoma was allocated 3 constituencies without consulting anybody. The director of the National Bureau of Standards has come to the committee where the distinguished senator from Machakos was and told them, I think Omogeni's committee, and told them, no, Bungoma deserves 4 and not 3. So on what basis were we given 3 and not 4 that we deserve if the allocation was being rational and scientific? This, and where did our extra 1 go? Mr. Speaker, when you look at Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, we are creating constituencies. The constitution is very clear on parameters. Take into account population, take into account landmass, community of interest, means of communication, all those things, Mr. Speaker. Nairobi, in my humble view, Mr. Speaker, needs more wards and not more constituencies. Because we are going to create constituencies in Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, that one will take 10 minutes to walk across. What about North Horr, Mr. Speaker, that is physically bigger than the former Western, former Nyanza, and former Central provinces put together? And it is still left as one. Where is equity? And that's why, Mr. Speaker, I don't agree with those proponents that we cannot amend this bill. If you read Article 257 to the letter, nothing ousts the authority of Parliament to amend a bill, including a bill such as this. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, law is dynamic. It is growing, it's moving every day. And we can set precedents by doing things we have not done before, including amending constitutional bills. When, Mr. Speaker, for example, the committee chaired by my distinguished learned junior senior counsel, Senator Omogeni, say that the schedule to this constitution on constituencies is unconstitutional. When they say it is unconstitutional and then tell us to pass, what are we being told? It is unconstitutional, but pass it. When they tell us, Mr. Speaker, that the provision on the judicial ombudsman is unconstitutional, and then they leave it there, what are they telling us? Because ordinarily, Mr. Speaker, committees of parliament, when they bisect and dissect a bill, they bring a report to guide debate, but they also bring amendments to the bill that will be consistent and in consonant with their findings in the report. So one would expect that the Homogeny Committee would have brought some amendments that will come at the next stage of this committee when we go to committee, so that we can consider this. Changing the constitution, Mr. Speaker, is not something that we should do casually. My colleagues, the women folk, both here and out there, have been clapping and smiling uncontrollably, Mr. Speaker, about the issue of 70 women coming to the Senate. I have no problem with that, but I expected, Mr. Speaker, that the women of this Kenya, the 47, sorry, that the women of this Kenya, Mr. Speaker, look at this more critically. The empowerment of the Kenyan woman by creating the 47 county representatives to the National Assembly came with empowerment resources. Now that those women have been uprooted from the National Assembly and dumped in the Senate, with no corresponding resources, Mr. Speaker, who is going to speak for the raped woman, the defiled girl? Who is going to give money to young girls for bursaries? Who is going to set up centers for rehabilitation for bastardized and abused girls? Mr. Speaker, it is not true, like my colleague Nyamunga said, that the money is following the women. There is no money to follow the women, Mr. Speaker. It is not. And it's not going to be there. Those women, Mr. Speaker,
there is a point of intervention from Senator Nyamunga.
Honorable Speaker, I just want to let us, the senior senator for Bungoma, not to mislead the House, because you can look at the answer. That's not what I said. So don't stand on this on the public gallery and make accusation of something that I did not say. So just be articulate in whatever you want to do, you want to make the Kenyans hear, but not to mislead people against me and incite. That's an incitement, Mr. Speaker.
You've been in that chair when my distinguished, she's been my very good friend. Her daughter is married in my county. And we get along very well. Mr. Speaker, she said that that money will remain there and will be given to other women. And she was challenged to tell us who are the other women, and there were none. Mr. Speaker, there were none. In fact, Mr. Speaker, those women in the National Assembly, each woman in each county gets 8 million per constituency in her county for affirmative action work. This amendment is a clawback on the empowerment of women. And I want to encourage our women folk not to be hijacked by populism, be guided by facts, so that you can be able to help the disadvantaged women of this country. Because I know for a fact that that fund will disappear, and it will not be there. And if anybody thinks that money will follow the women to this Senate, then you can ask a question. If Tarakanith has my distinguished learned friend, professor, as a male senator and another woman senator, what justification will be there to give a woman senator money for affirmative action and not the male senator? It will not work. Mr. Speaker, the judicial ombudsman, Mr. Speaker, you know, the judiciary of this country has done us proud. In the face of serious adversity, Mr. Speaker, the judiciary has risen to the occasion. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I dare say that this Senate continues to be what it is because of the judiciary. From our advisory opinion that we sought, and the many things, Mr. Speaker, including but not limited to you leading us to the judiciary to file a case. This House, Mr. Speaker, has been able to force the reluctant Speaker, my good friend Muturi of the National Assembly, who looked at this House with terrible disdain. He has been able to brought to order by the judiciary to realize and appreciate that Article 110(3) of the Constitution was not put there to color the Constitution, was put there purposely for the houses to work together properly. Now, Mr. Speaker, we are saying the judicial ombudsman will, among other things, sit in the JSC, but will enhance the reign of terror on judges, Mr. Speaker, by, among other things, warning, reprimanding, and suspending judges. Mr. Speaker, how can we vest such powers in any organ in our country? That tomorrow, a judge sitting, and I want to tell you, my colleagues behind me, and my distinguished brother from Kilifi, who worked with me before in his earlier life, was a judge. Mr. Speaker, this country has gone through a history that is terrifying. Professor Kindi can tell you we had a European judge who, when hearing cases of the notorious Mwakenya, used to walk to State House carrying a file to go and show State House the judgment he's drafting against charged individuals. And then he is told, "Hiyo ni sawa sawa," then he goes back. We know this. And Senator Mogeni, you know this. By having such an insertion in the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, what we are saying, and I always remind you, Mr. Speaker, that Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, when he was Prime Minister, he passed a law that no foreign lawyer, Queen's Counsel, King's Counsel, would practice law in Pakistan. He was overthrown by a terrible general called Zia-ul Haq, arrested and imposed on drummed up charges of murder. Zia-ul Haq terrified every lawyer in Pakistan. They could not defend Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. He brought in a QC from the UK. They brought him the law and said, "Your QC cannot practice law here." He said, "He must." He said, "This is the law you passed." So, Mr. Speaker, Justice Ringera, when he was teaching us law, always ended his lesson by telling us, if you want the test of a good law, imagine that law in the hands of your worst enemy. If you feel safe, then it's a good law. And that is what we need, Mr. Speaker. Imagine, Mr. Speaker, a case is being heard. Senator Milgo is facing drummed up charges for having abandoned the Jubilee and is pursuing the Tanga Tanga Quartet. And the judge hearing the case, Mr. Speaker, is summoned before the JSC and is reprimanded, is warned, and suspended. And once the judge is suspended, the case goes to another judge because the case doesn't die because the judge has been suspended. And the judge who will now pick Milgo's file will remember the fate of the judge who handled the file earlier. Will Milgo get justice? Never, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, Americans say, if it is working, don't fix it. The JSC is working, Mr. Speaker. And we have seen judges being dealt with under the JSC. I personally have reported judges who have taken bribes and they have gone there and testified. There are many others who have done so, and it's working. Mr. Speaker, what we're trying to do now is create an organ that will do what Okoth Ogendo, as our professor used to tell us, visit on you the fear of God and the terror of the devil tied together. And you can imagine, Mr. Speaker, when you are staring at the fear of God and the terror of the devil, what you can do. We should not do this to our country. And I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, that that provision is a clawback on the independence of the judiciary, and that we need to rethink this seriously. Mr. Speaker, we are giving more money to the counties. I support this fully, Mr. Speaker. In fact, as NASA, we used to fight for 45%. We have now moved to 35%. But we have also said, Mr. Speaker, the institutions of governance in Kenya are too weak to manage these resources. The Office of the Auditor General, the Office of the Controller of Budget, the Office of ESCC, the Office of the DPP. I thought, Mr. Speaker, as we devolve more money, because it's on record from our president that Kenyans working for the government are stealing 2 billion daily. 2 billion daily, Mr. Speaker. And they stand here and tell us they are more hardworking than others. Mr. Speaker, 2 billion daily. I expected, Mr. Speaker, that this amendment was going now to strengthen the offices of the institutions of governance so that, Mr. Speaker, we do not have a situation where, like one professor said, at every election, we elect 47 ordinary Kenyans as governors. At the end of 5 years, we have increased the number of billionaires in Kenya by 47. Mr. Speaker, we want, Mr. Speaker, to see a situation where public resources are protected at all costs. That anybody who is found to have dipped his hand in a public till, Mr. Speaker, must face the consequences. What do we see today, Mr. Speaker? You go to your county. I come from a county where respect for public resources is an act of history. It is stuck in history. Nobody remembers. People use public resources as if they are their monies. They don't know the difference between public resources and private resources. And that is what's happening, Mr. Speaker. When you see, Mr. Speaker, a governor goes to a funeral and tells people, Mr. Speaker, if you can add me a few minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes. Okay, 3 minutes.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a governor walks to a funeral and tells mourners, when I finish my speech, you follow me in namumina kitu. In my language, kumina kitu is to press something in somebody's hands, Mr. Speaker. These are not his resources. These are your resources. And a theft in Bungoma is a theft in Tarakaniti. A theft in Bomet is a theft in Kitui. A theft in Meru is a theft in Nyamira, Mr. Speaker. Because we are denying people resources for development. In Korea, Mr. Speaker, 4 former presidents are in jail. They're in jail. One, in fact, Mr. Speaker, drove to a seaside and leaped from a cliff into the sea and died because they were about to arrest him and take him to court. Mr. Speaker, when you look at our country, the richest people in Kenya are former civil servants or current civil servants. If you want to be rich quickly, you don't have to run your law firm, Kindiki. Go and be a procurement manager. in some innocuous organization and procure for yourself every day. We must strengthen the institutions of governance, Mr. Speaker. This country is not poor. This country is very rich. I don't agree with Cherargei that we are under receivership. We are not. This country is rich. But the wealth of this country must be managed properly. And we must demolish bastions and hideouts of criminals who don't distinguish between public resources and private resources, so that our children can go to school, so that our women can have water in their houses, so that we can put food on the table, so that we can drive on good roads, so that our police can be paid well, not to know that to be put at a roadblock is a license to pick money from a motorist, so that, Mr. Speaker, members of parliament do not investigate public servants with an agenda of being paid to let them go. Mr. Speaker, repeatedly we have been bastardizing the police for corruption. Corruption is domiciled in parliament. In parliament, Mr. Speaker. Today, governors who come to appear before committees of this House come smiling and leave smiling. Mr. Speaker, this is dangerous for our country. And as we amend this constitution, Mr. Speaker, we must also address the issues that have confined certain regions to endemic poverty. Mr. Speaker, if we know that we are allocating, let me wind up, we are allocating resources to electoral areas, and the president said he wants to see money in wards, I agree. He wants to see money in constituencies, I agree. And then you create 70 constituencies, and some regions don't get any. It means the areas that are getting those constituencies are the ones being given additional resources, and those that are not getting are being denied resources. The centerpiece of the Constitution 2010, Mr. Speaker, and I've said it over and over, was equity and fairness for the people of the Republic of Kenya. And it remains so, it will remain so, it doesn't matter at what stage we amend our Constitution. If we lose sight of fairness and equity, Mr. Speaker, we are laying ground for a distorted future for our country. And I want to urge the committee of Senator Omogeni, Senator Orengo, Senator Mutula Kilonzo, Senator Cherargei, and all those who are with you, who are lawyers and who are not lawyers. We expect in the committee stage to see you bring amendments to this constitutional bill. And let nobody frighten you that you can't amend, you can amend. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll vote when it comes.
Senator Abshiro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the Amendment Bill 2020. Mr. Speaker, I am a bit confused. You know, Mr. Speaker, I've said this before, a great debate or a great speech doesn't only capture the truth of the moment, it can also capture the big lies. As I sit here, I have seen my colleagues speak in such perfect language about stuff that, when really put in context, can be qualified as big fat lies. Mr. Speaker, and there's always this disconnect between the oratory expertise and the manner in which people have expressed this and the vote at the end of the day. Mr. Speaker, you know, as I sat here, I kept writing down, and I will look out for the alignment of the debate to the vote at the end of the day. Of course, we'll all vote at the end of the day. But that having been said, Madam Speaker, the beauty and the strength of our Constitution is in the ability of it to be amended in various ways. the ability for our constitution to be amended directly under Article 256 of the Constitution, parliamentary, or directly by Wanjiku or Fatuma or Cherop under Article 257 of the Constitution. Madam Speaker, in this particular case, this draft constitutional amendment bill is a direct exercise by Wanjiku, by Fatuma, by Cherop of her constitutional and her sovereign right to amend and to exercise the flexibility and the strength of our constitution to allow us to amend where it's not working. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, this is to address the concerns of our structural elements that had not been anticipated or that had not worked for us in the last 10 years of the implementation of our constitution. Madam Speaker, when I look at this bill, in the memorandum of objects and reasons of the bill, the promoters of the bill have indicated that it seeks to address arising implementation gaps, specifically the need to resolve issues of divisive elections and promote gender equity in governance, strengthen the structure of devolution, increase resource allocation to the counties, and broaden mechanisms for all people of Kenya to benefit from economic growth and harmonize certain roles and functions of bicameral legislature. Fortify our national ethos by specifying the responsibilities of citizens and strengthen accountability on public resource and the fight against corruption. Madam Speaker, who can fault this? Who can say that these are things that had been resolved by our Constitution of Kenya 2010. Madam Speaker, as I sat here, I was very saddened by the tone and the patronizing debate on the issue of the women folk. Mr. Speaker, we're told that we were laughing and clapping, but who can tell us that the 2/3 gender rule under the Constitution of Kenya 2010 was achieved? That was not achieved. Of all the significant legislation that was to be implemented, that was the one piece of legislation that was defeated by the legislature. Mr. Speaker, then to insinuate that we are clapping for something that had worked for us is to lie to this nation. At least as far as the Constitution of Kenya 2010 is concerned, and the 2/3 gender rule, that promise, that aspiration, that vision was never achieved, and this is our chance to try and get it right under the BBI and the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill. That is not to say that there are no gaps in this bill. Mr. Speaker, for instance, I also have concerns around the 70 additional constituencies. It has been said, I know I come from Northern Kenya, where not a single constituency, especially in Upper Eastern, has been given to Upper Eastern. It has been said, and it's a known fact, North Hall, for instance, and I really, must say, one of the largest or the largest constituency in our country has had no additional constituency. To purport that Kenya is just a function of its people and not also its borders and its land is is an understatement and is to run away from the truth. Madam Speaker, it has been said North Hall can accommodate Western Kenya, Central Kenya, and perhaps other provinces, and it didn't get one. But that having been said, Isiolo County, for instance, with its vast expanse of land, has not got any. But what we're looking at also is, can we look at other innovative ways, as sub-counties, for instance, to ensure that resources and services are taken to the lowest level of the front line of service delivery to the people? Madam Speaker, it was also mentioned that, the sunset clauses are too close for women. The women of this country are not looking for affirmative action in perpetuity. We're not asking for affirmative action to the end of the world. We're asking for making sure the environment in which we are playing, the environment in which we are working, the environment in which we live is made level for us. We're not asking for tokens for the rest of our lives. And if BBI is the one thing that's going to then level the field for us, that is what we will go for. But to patronize us and to say the women are clapping and laughing and dancing for something that's taken away from us is to miss the point, because the women of this country are some of the smartest people. The women of this country are carrying this nation on their backs. The women of this country are majority of the people in this country. And to even pretend that we need to be given certain projects and programs that are sidelined, we must be mainstreamed. And that is why I welcome women coming to the Senate. I know it has been said that the women rep position has money. What money is 8 million shillings to buy tents and things like that? That I do not consider empowerment. But if a woman can come here and vote for billions of shillings to go to our counties, that is empowerment. Because that is where the work, and that is where we should be serving the people. In fact, all these funds that are given to legislators, look at what the role of legislation is. There's nowhere in this the constitution that it says the role of a woman or the role of a legislator is to buy tents, is to build roads. Our role is to make laws. Our role is to make policies that then our resources will follow. And then those resources are used at the devolved level and at the national level in accordance with those laws, so that then we mainstream. To give us certain little amounts as tokens that are not mainstreamed, that are on the sidelines, so that we can buy ourselves a few water bottles and carry them on our backs, is not empowerment. It is keeping us out of the mainstream. It is keeping us in the periphery as women and even as youth. Madam Speaker, therefore, I reject the notion that we should continue to be relegated to affirmative resources, to affirmative positions in perpetuity and forever. We should be streamlined, and part of coming on equal terms to the Senate is a good starting point for the women of this country. Madam Speaker, I have looked at this and I have read and reread this bill. This bill seeks to expand criteria on a lot of the provisions. It seeks to add, it doesn't subtract. And I can go clause by clause, which I won't do. I will just skim through. Madam Speaker, the criteria on Article 31, for instance, let me just get my notes, is expanded to reflect the new normal of data-driven economy and socio-economic and political rights. These are some of the things that perhaps in the Constitution of Kenya 2010 we had not anticipated as we're giving ourselves the Constitution. Madam Speaker, I keep losing, okay. These are some of the things that perhaps had not been anticipated, and so to amend the structures to ensure that certain aspect that hadn't been anticipated, be it this pandemic, be it perhaps the whole issue around data, around the fourth industrial estate, must be accommodated and must be dealt with through amendments, because again, the strength of our Constitution is in the ability of us, of Wanjiko, to amend it to reflect its new realities. Mr. Speaker, I'm a little confused, Madam Speaker, I'm sorry. I'm a little confused though by the committee's recommendation to implement and to pass this amendment bill, but at the same time talk of the unconstitutionality of a constitutional amendment. How on earth can any constitutional amendment that has been given an approach, that has been given a mechanism for amendment, be termed as unconstitutional? Are we then saying, what contradiction is it then to say, even though our Constitution has anticipated us being able to amend our Constitution and has given us blow-by-blow mechanism for doing so and different approaches to do so, again we go back and say it's unconstitutional? I'm a bit confused. I'm not a lawyer, but I see contradiction in the committee's assertion that certain provisions are unconstitutional. How you can talk of the content, perhaps, not being agreeable to you, but the process, I don't understand how a process that is in law can be termed unconstitutional and then in the same breath being asked to pass it because it's a good one. I know senior counsel is a lawyer of very great standing, and he must know why he's saying that, but from where I sit, it looks like a confusion and a speech from both mouths, where a recommendation is to pass the bill, but that unconstitutionality of a constitutional amendment is what we're being told it is. Madam Speaker, as I said, how can it be wrong to expand the parameters of certain provisions in our Constitution that hasn't worked well for us in the last 10 years, to tweak it, to make it better, to accommodate, and to include, be termed as something that is not constitutional, or be termed as below optimal? Madam Speaker, as I said, the 70 constituencies, if we need to revisit, does not have to be revisited within a constitutional amendment bill. It has been said again, the work of delimitation of boundaries and allocation of constituencies is a constitutional mandate of the IEBC. So why not leave that to the IEBC and pass the bill? Because again, as a draft bill, unless we take it back to Wanjiku for her own endorsement, I don't see how then at this level we decide to amend. Because if we were going through Article 256, for instance, and it's a parliamentary process, we're mandated to do that. But Wanjiku chose a direct approach. Wanjiku chose an approach where she had control over the outcome of the process. And taking that away from her is to say, or to insinuate, that this constitution did not know what it was doing when it gave us two different approaches. One where we as parliamentarians can influence and can change and can take control of, and another where Wanjiku can exercise her power directly and do as she pleases. Madam Speaker, it's arrogant for us to think that there's nothing we cannot do. Our role is clear. Our role is limited to what has been mandated to us. And it cannot be that we do as we please. Madam Speaker, just as I conclude, because I don't even want to go on too much, I would like to just allude to Article 203, Madam Speaker, because that article...
Senator, there is a point of order from Senator Wambua Kio.
Madam Speaker, I really hate to do this, but just allow me to raise this issue. My friend Senator Abshiro is confusing me. On the one hand, she's saying that if the provisions in terms of the constitutional roles assigned to IEBC are unconstitutional, then why can't we just remove them and then pass this constitution? On the other hand, she's saying, no, you can't do anything. You can't change this. You can't amend this bill. So I'm looking for clarity as to what our position is on the matter of the allocation of constituencies to counties. On that issue, Madam Speaker, I would want clarity because I'm trying to follow. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, the clarity is as follows. Madam Speaker, what I was trying to say is that given delimitation is the mandate of IEBC, but that having been said, Wanjiku, Cherop, Nduku have a right to make proposals as to what they would like. Unless you have an issue with the proposals as given to the proponents, then it is something that at the apex, at the sovereignty of Wanjiku, she has a right to propose anything under the sun, including what is mandated for us in our constitution, including what's mandated for IBC or even for us as senators. So that is my clarification. But that having been said, let me just move quickly to the issue of the last year, the revenue. On 17th of September, Madam Speaker, the third basis for revenue allocation among counties was adopted by the Senate pursuant to Article 217(1) of the Constitution. The Division of Revenue Bill 2021, which is currently before Parliament, was drafted to account for the third basis for revenue sharing. And the committee has observed that amendment to Article 203 did not pronounce itself on the fate of the third basis of the revenue sharing, which was developed on the basis of Article 203 as presently rendered in the Constitution. As a result, if the bill is passed while the third basis for revenue sharing among the counties remains in place, there will be two conflicting constitutional provisions on revenue sharing. But Madam Speaker, going on with the findings of this, what has been emphasized, Madam Speaker, and the observation on the Constitution provides that in every 5 years, the Senate shall by resolution determine the basis for allocation among the counties. So I don't see how that is a contradiction, because for the next 5 years, what we agreed in September 2020 will hold. And at the end of that 5 years, the Senate under Article 217(1) will determine a new basis. So again, I wish to bring this attention of the House and of the country that it is not correct for the committee to confuse us on this basis, because at the end of the 5 years, we have already a basis in place that will run to the end of the 5 years, at which time this issue under the Constitution of Kenya 2010, Article 217, will be revisited with new realities and a new context and dealt with conclusively as was done in 2020. Again, on that account, I'd like to say I support. Madam Speaker, I know my time is running out and I have quite a few other things to say, but that having been said, I would like to laud the committee for a good, for having gone through this with a toothpick. And I would like to say that the fact that the Bill of Rights wasn't touched is an indication of the fact that the rights and responsibilities of Kenyans were preserved, and only structural and other provisions that are easily amended and based on the provisions and based on the proposals of the Kenyans were included in this. And on that basis, Madam Speaker, I would like to laud the team for not tinkering at all with the Bill of Rights, which has been lauded as one of the best and most dynamic in the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks and with the fact that I know, again, I'd like to mention one last thing, Madam Speaker, as I finish. Numbers have been thrown around of population on different counties and the corresponding number of constituencies that were given. That is presuming and assuming that all factors were remaining constant. That when Kwale got 3 more or 4 more, they had exact same numbers to begin with. So again, we cannot say that is the reason, because Kwale could have had much less and could have been given much fewer constituencies in the past. Madam Speaker, could you give me a few more minutes? I know you...
Yes, you have attracted a point of order from Senator Mogeni, so I'll give him 1 second because you are winding up.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I just wanted, if the Senator can allow me to just inform her. She's creating the impression...
Do you want information?
I don't mind. Nobody has informed me very well in this book.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the good Senator is creating the impression that we are misleading the House or misinforming the House. But what we have done is just to highlight what is in Constitutional of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020. Madam Speaker, on the issue of revenue, what we have highlighted to the House is the implication of the amendment that introduces Article 203, sub-article N, and which has introduced a per capita policy in sharing of revenue. And if you take into account the report that was given to us by the Parliamentary Budget Office, then there are counties that will lose money, 7 of them, a total of 8.2 billion. So what we have given to the House, Madam Speaker, is a direct implication on what will happen to the sharing of revenue among the 47 counties once the proposed Article 2 or 3N is implemented. We have not tried to in any way mislead the House, but just given the House the facts as they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair of the committee. I'll give you 1 minute. You don't have to, you can digest that information. You don't have to respond.
It's okay, Madam Speaker. I have digested because everything that has been given by my good friend and chair is actually here, and I've read and reread them. That having been said, again, I don't know how the chair would know in the next 5 years after this, and with the same criteria being used, he will know the counties that will lose. I don't see from where I sit, because if we apply the criteria and as expanded, we will ensure, and I'm sure this House will ensure, but that having said, thank you very much. So as I conclude, Madam Speaker, I thank the proponents for ensuring that certain aspects that hadn't worked in the Constitution of Kenya 2010, especially as regards marginalized communities, as regards women of this country. As you know, the 2/3 gender rule did not see light of day in our Constitution, is being dealt with. And I thank the people of Kenya for ensuring that our Constitution is flexible enough to continually adapt to the changes we see in our country. I thank you, and I support.
Thank you, Senator. Online, we have had Mary Senator waiting for a while. Senator Mary Senator. Senator Mary Senator. Are you still on? Yes, Senator Mary Senator, we are not hearing you. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for also giving me a chance to add my voice on this very, very important constitutional bill. Madam Speaker, before I go to the bill itself, I just wish to note a few things here. Madam Speaker, as a country, we are at the middle of a pandemic. We are in an economic crisis, Madam Speaker, and I thought COVID-19 is an issue that first we need to be discussing at the moment. But Madam Speaker, you know, a constitutional amendment is very, very important, and therefore it is a very important moment for us to add our voices as representatives. Bill, and I am very, very particular in, you'll allow me to read also a few articles. I want to go to the amendment, Madam Speaker. I know 94 senators I know the amendment is talking of 94 senators who are going to be elected to the
Mary Senator, we are losing you again.
Account fund.
Mary Senator, we are not. Are you able to come back in the afternoon? Maybe you'll be in a better place.
Let me try to correct my internet.